Lord, here I am. You want me? You got me. And you know, after they got done stinging the heck out of her, she figured full well she was going to die. And she picked herself up and shuffled back to her apartment, figuring full well that she was going to die. And in 2-3 days, well, she thought she was. She was in that much pain. But then she noticed that she could start doing things that she couldn't do before. And it just kept improving from there. Now, one of my friends guided me to this gal. She was living out in Phoenix at the time. And when I come out here to do the organic beekeepers, I just don't deadhead it. I visit people all along the line. And this chick is one of the ones I visited one of the years when I come out here to Oregon. And thank God I've had the blessing of having that person in my life ever since then. She is that much of a treasure to me. In fact, this year when she was here, she was sharing with me one of the stories. She had 4 kids. She's got 3 girls and a boy. She had one little girl, and it was carrying her second little girl when her husband got killed in a plane crash. So here you got this young mother with 1 and a half and all this responsibility and no help. Well, she ended up marrying another guy, and the family was well off, but they were trying to stifle her, you know, and she realized that she just had to get away from them just to keep her sanity. So she ended up losing 2 more kids with that marriage. And her lines were so bad that she couldn't even recognize her own kids. When she was there in New York, I think it was probably during the time of this second marriage, she had a meeting with one of these headhunters in the World Trade Center. And she was having this battle go on. She had this, she'd asked one of these kids to take out the garbage. And she come home and found out it wasn't out yet. And she was going on this massive battle in her brain, you know, if I stop and carry out that trash, I'm going to be late for this appointment. And I've never been late for an appointment in my life. So she was going through this way, you know. Finally, here she is running around out there in high-heeled shoes, you know, dragging this trash out to the street. And knowing full well she's going to be late for this appointment, she called this headhunter and told her, said, wait for me in the lobby. She said, I'll be there. I'm going to be a little late. And the headhunter said, that's okay. She says, I'll go up. You just get here when you can. Well, she got hung up by the Hudson Tunnel. And long story short, that was the morning of 9/11. So she was telling me, she says, you know, you can connect the dots when you're looking backwards, but you can't connect the dots when you're looking forward into the future. And this is the kind of stuff that she's just awesome with. This gal on the right here is a gal that talks on gluten-free. Both of them presented at our conference. We had our 8th annual Apitherapy Conference in Pittsfield this year. There was 100 people there. People there from California to all over. Some of them didn't make it in because of the snow. We didn't really have that much snow, but you know, people do what they can do. Can you see any difference in these two panels here? There's about about 13 stings there. We worked with some of this scrap iron too. This is a guy that was a motorcycle escort driver, and he was trying to get up back in front of the procession again, and there was a trailer in the way. And either he was going to be a grease spot on the side of that trailer, or he had to lay it down and try to go underneath. Well, this is what happened when he laid it down and tried to go underneath. That accident happened on April 7th of 14, and I didn't start working with him until November 12th of 14. And at that point, the medical people were threatening to cut his leg off because he couldn't heal it. His wife was threatening to divorce him because he couldn't work, and 3 kids in the balance. And we started to work with him. We started him on the bee stings. We started using bone knit, which is comfrey. We used anything and everything natural we could. The stuff for combating the side effects of the antibiotics, you know, your stomach floral. We got them going on that. They didn't have anything like that. It's neat to see these things, the crap that comes out of these holes here. It'll switch from this one to this one here, you know, back and forth. Infection coming out of there. I don't think we worked on this guy a month and a half, and he's back out on that cycle, escorting funerals. Getting on with life, doing what he needs to do to keep going forward. We're still working with him. This is what happens when you got a cold west wind coming into an observation hive in the wintertime. These dumb girls, they just get out of the way and let it go through. I was kind of shocked when I opened that up that one night, and I had to quick run and get a camera and take a picture of these girls, how they had gotten out of the way of this cold air. These are observation hives that I made up myself. They're made with 1/4-inch plate glass, so they're quite heavy. And they're made with 4 deep frames, standing up singly. And they're the biggest teaching tools that I have in the place. And we use them all the time. Oops, I think we went too far. Yeah, that's another one there. Well, it shows it when they're not all pushed out of there. The one on the left here, these bees right here, a friend of mine gave them to me because he didn't think it was going to make it through the winter. And I said, I'll take them. Put them in there. We'll keep an eye on their feed, you know, make sure they got enough honey. And when it gets down to where we think they're not going to make it, we unscrew it, take the glass off of it, take a frame out of there, slip one in. It has 6 to 7 pounds of honey in it. Put her back together, shut her up. That's how we feed. These are hard-looking working girls, and we are not going to feed them any of this other garbage out there. Years ago, I used to feed a little bit of corn syrup, and maybe a little sugar, but that had to be 20 years ago or better that I did any of that stupid stuff. Not anymore. Not anymore. Oh, this hive here, I've got homemade Velcro straps here that hold Luann plywood and a 1-inch styrofoam. When you spread your hive out like that thin, the girls can't keep the maternity ward warm enough. So you've got to insulate it. This last year up in Ohio, our August, when I send these 2 hives on vacation, because we don't want them to get bored, we send them to the county fair for vacation for 1 week. And we got all these master beekeepers up there, and I put them up there on a Saturday, and I brought them home. I brought the 1 hive home on Tuesday. When you take that insulation off too early in the morning when it is too cold yet, and put it on too late at night when it is too cold, I lost 75% of the bees in that hive in 2 days' time. And it never did come back. Even after I got home, cleaned it up, it never did come back. They've been struggling the rest of the year. They're still going, but it's been a struggle. This is how I insulate everything. I take, there's 6 hives here. I take 2-inch styrofoam because it works out perfect. I cut it into 20 inches by 16 inches, and I hold it right up tight up against the telescoping cover, and I'll put a little cleat of wood underneath of it with just a screw in it. Do that on 4 sides. And then I go around it with shrink wrap that comes on these rolls about this big around, and it's about that wide, and just stretch it around there up to the top. When we get up to the top to the telescoping cover, we just take a little T-pin, it has like a little T handle on it, and shove it into the end of the shrink wrap so that it can't unwrap. And that's how I wrap these things. And then I put a 2-inch piece on the top of it. And even with these hives insulated in that fashion, I've got 2 out of 6. So, this is the swarm out of the observation hive in the house that one of the few ones that we got this year, or this past year. And we took that down to sting these 2 little Amish girls. I put them in a 5-frame note there, and then I took them down to sting these little Amish girls, and I put it into a full deep sewer. And excuse me. But they are still going strong. We're into these hives enough. When we go into them, all we do is lift up the telescoping cover, take a jar and scoop enough bees off the bottom side of that telescoping cover, and that's it. Put it back down, put the insulation on it, and go sting them.
Dawn, how do you sting them? Do you like hold each bee and hold it on, or do you put the bees on in a jar and let them zap, or what do you do?
No, we use some high-tech tweezers that we make. You take this banding steel, like they band up shipping stuff. Anyhow, we'll take and I cut it about 26 inches, something like that. And I fold it in half, and you want to get it perfectly square, because if you don't, when you squeeze them, they don't come together perfectly straight. They'll be off. So that hurts pretty well. Then we grind down it a little bit, to thin it down a little bit at the end. Hit it with a buffing wheel. But I love the things because as long as you get a hold of the whole bee, they're long enough and flexible enough, you're not going to destroy the bee. And we're all about not destroying the girls before we get to use them.
One more question. Can you use the stingers off of expired bees?
No. Well, once in a while you can utilize them. You pick them up, you look at them, and you think they're dead, but you try it, and lots of times you can get them. Here's another Pharaoh hive that I got a call at 7:30 at night and asked me if I wanted some bees. I said, sure. I never say no. Never. These were hanging out in the woods, and my son-in-law had found them when he was deer hunting, and he'd come over and pick me up with his pickup truck, and I took a few things with me, some cutters and a sheet, and we went out there and trimmed off a few branches, and I gently wrapped this big old sheet around these bees, and then we made the final cut so that I had the bees in my hand on this branch. And I got down out of this 4x4 pickup truck and come around and crawled into the front of the cab of this truck. He wasn't all happy about me crawling in the front of his pickup truck. But the girls were fine. There was water in some of the cells. They were virtually starving to death. There was hive beetles on them out there in the open like that. But I come home and I set them out. I didn't want to bring them in the house. So I had 2 stacks of deep supers about 5 high, and I just laid this thing up spanning in between these 2 supers like that with a sheet around them. And I figured it'd be okay till morning to protect them from the cold. It was the third night of freezing weather. So they absolutely wouldn't have gone much further. Couldn't possibly. But I brought them in the house, into my bee room, and I had one there that was empty. I had lost them. So I had a gal in here in my place from Maui, Hawaii, who was an acupuncture gal. And she took these pictures, and I took a couple pictures of her too. But we cut these pieces of wax off of that branch and trimmed them to fit onto deep frames with no wire, nothing on them. You just put some rubber bands around them. You can see how we're all suited up there. And that's Miss Maui there on the right there, with all suited up and everything. And after we got all done and cleaned this up, I said, well, how many stings did you get? She says, none. That's not too bad for bees 101. This here is a quite lengthy story. This guy here got electrocuted 15 years ago. He laid up on top of 7,200 volts for 30 minutes before they could get him off of there. They could not even shut it off. The only thing they could do was toss more shit up on top of these wires to short it out. Short it out to enough that they could lift this guy off of there. And this guy was a week away from having his own truck and his own crew. And he was doing absolutely everything he was told to do. And his foreman told him to get up there and make that cut. And the guy told him, he said, you know, he said, I'll go up there and make that cut. But he said, you might as well get on the phone and make the call right now, because this isn't going to work. But he went up there and made that cut. And that's when he ended up there, laying up there on top of that for half an hour before they could get him out of there. It burned up his left arm. It blew out a hole on the right side of his ankle down here, right in here. And they took a skin graft off the top of his foot, right up in here, about 2 inches in diameter, about a 1/4 inch deep. Now, you look at your own foot there, there's not a whole lot of meat in the top of that foot there. In fact, when that guy come into my place 13 and a half years after this accident, that 1/4 inch deep hole in the top of his foot was still there. It hadn't filled a bit. The scar tissue in the bottom of that hole was so heavy that the toes would not even move. Now that's your balance. Those toes have got to be able to curl like this, and the inner ear here is your balance. If you don't have that, you are dead in the water. Well, his name is Travis, and he's now a beekeeper, not a bee haver like me. I'm not smart enough to be a beekeeper, but I flat out told him, I said, you know, you can be a better therapist than me, because you've been there and done it, what you've been through. And he's not done with it yet. When he come in there 13 and a half years after this accident, he was so bad that he walked at about a 45 degrees with 2 canes like that. That's how he shuffled around. His father brought him. He was so poor he didn't even have gas money to come up to my place. It ended up, I finally had to give the guy a job just so he had gas money. You know, he was around my place, I bet you for 6 months, 6 to 9 months before he could even start talking about this accident. Then is when I find out that this foreman down on the ground calling the shots was an 18-and-a-half-year-old wannabe foreman that was a son of one of the other crews. It was one of the sons. And wasn't even dry behind the ears, you know. And one of the things that I've got to do when I get home is I've got to hit this guy. He has got to forgive this young kid that's now in his 30s. Because if he don't, it's going to do himself in. And I do not mean maybe. Within the last 2 weeks, he had like a heart attack at my place. And we put cayenne tincture in his mouth, two full eyedroppers full, and called 911, hauled him off. Couldn't find anything wrong. He did a lot of pain, in the chest area, chest cavity, and now they're leaning more like it's his lungs. He's got a lung issue, and I really don't believe it's either one. I really believe he's got a forgiveness issue that he's got to deal with. Because if he don't, it's going to destroy him. You absolutely cannot stand before your Creator and ask to be forgiven when you have not forgiven your brother or your sister. You just can't do it. So I've got to hit him hard when I get home. I'm not going to do nothing like that over the phone. I'm going to do it in person. This is a granddaughter. She was in a car accident. She had a broken clavicle up here in her shoulder. This lung here was collapsed. And she had a double break here in the pelvis, one here, and one here. She had a double break down here in the pubic area, right here, right down there. You can see how nice and smooth this side of the birth canal is. But any kid coming through this side here is going to have a rough ride. And Grandpa had to go into the hospital, to start stinging this granddaughter. So you got to go kind of incognito. I had 2 bees in the shirt pocket here on tweezers. And we had asked for x-rays of these injuries from day one. Never got nothing. So the only thing we had to guide the girls was her pain level. So we went for the pain. 2 days later, Grandpa's back and he's got 4 bees in his shirt pocket. And we give her 4 bees at the most painful spots on her body. And before I got out of there, before I took those last 4 stings out of there, I got pictures of her standing up walking. Got her, stood up out of that wheelchair, walked over to the restroom, come back, got in the wheelchair. You got some choices to make with this stuff. Either you want to have some quality of life or you don't care. But you're just not going to go out there and teach any 20-year-old something, because they just flat out know it all. I don't know what you got in the experience along those lines, but it's a rough sell. Right up in here, see that little black line there, and here, and here. She was telling me, she said, "No, Grandpa," she says, "I can't lean backwards anymore, it hurts." And I said, "Well, Molly," I said, you see them little black lines there? I said, what if those are fractures? And she backs up and she looks at me and she said, well, he never said anything about that. And I said, who cares? I said, sting it. I took and put 10 stings in that bag, 5 on each side, right down through, boom, 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 boom. 20 minutes later, this 20-year-old comes back doing the back bend. You know, choices, choices, choices. I'm not just talking any back brand, that's a pretty decent back brand. And that's about 4.5 months after this accident. We lost this guy here too. Like I said before, this stuff is about quality of life. This guy died here in November at 88. He died of lung cancer that he didn't let the girls work on, despite all the stuff that he had seen around our place over the years, and other cancers we've worked on, people that he knew personally. For some reason or other, he chose not to go that way. I don't know why, don't even have a clue. But you know, at 85, this guy was out in a 32-foot sailboat. The girls had got him in shape to do that. He was out trying to sail around South America by himself in a 32-foot sailboat. What's wrong with something like that? To be out there chasing your dreams at 85 versus, in a rest home in a wheelchair rocking back and forth, you know? You know, you've got some choices to make with this stuff. This was after he got picked up after his mask broke, you know, and he had to send out an SOS and get picked up. But there he is. This is, he was a retired lawyer. And he wasn't a what I would call an aggressive lawyer. He was an empowering lawyer. You know, he was more about empowering people. We went to his funeral in November of last year, and there was an awful lot of people there at that funeral, and there wasn't anybody that had anything bad to say about this guy. I mean, they all talked about how much he had helped them over the years, you know. This is an MS patient that had fallen. And I don't have the picture right after, I mean, when we started.